What's up, airplane collectors? Welcome to a model airplane review. It's your host, Ray. In today's video, I'll be reviewing the PandaModel 1 to 400 scale United Airlines Boeing 767-400ER. In this video, I'll do a review of the model and its features, and at the end I will give my personal opinion about what I think of the model and whether or not I recommend it to other collectors. This model is one of the first releases from PandaModel on their new 1 to 400 scale Boeing 767-400 mold, so we'll see how the new mold holds up in today's review. Here's the box. It's made out of a thick cardstock material, and it measures 15 centimeters lengthwise and height-wise, and 4 centimeters wide. Now, before I show you around the box, there is something on the front here that I would like to discuss, that being the Boeing 767-400 title up here. Like I said earlier, the aircraft in the box is a Boeing 767-400ER, which stands for extra range. However, this isn't denoted on the box. Is that an issue, really? No, but it's something that I thought I'd mention. Now I'll show you around the box. So here's the front, here's the bottom, right side, top, left side, and the back side. Included in the box is the model, fully assembled, painted, and ready to display. Before I begin my review, I'm going to give you a quick 360 of the model. The fuselage length for this model is 15.3 centimeters, the wingspan is 13 centimeters, and from the ground to the top of the vertical stabilizer, it is 4 centimeters tall. This is accurate to 1 to 400 scale. This model is made primarily out of die-cast metal. Let's discuss the fuselage first. So here's the nose section of the aircraft. The nose profile on this mold is very nicely done. PandaModel did a great job considering that this is their first 1 to 400 scale 767 mold. I compared it to the real nose of the 767-400, and I saw almost no difference, so they pretty much nailed the nose shape. No complaints. Very good job on PandaModel for that. Painted detail and printed detail is also quite extensive, as you'll see. I'll move the fuselage so you can see, well, the fuselage, I should say. I should move the model. But anyway, the detail is quite extensive, and there are very little inconsistencies or imperfections. And the ones that I did identify are so small that I quite literally cannot show them on camera because the camera cannot register them. So, very good job so far. Here's the vertical stabilizer, and unfortunately there are things I have to nitpick about up here. Now, the shape and the molded detail of the vertical stabilizer are very nice. The rudder detail, in terms of molded detail, is present, although it is very hard to see. You can barely see some of it down here, and it's very shallow, so it's very hard to see. That's the only complaint I have about it, though. The shape is accurate, and the shape of the vertical stabilizer itself is accurate as well. I'm not sure if I said that already. Now, painted and printed detail, that's where my nitpicks come in. The painted detail in regards to the colors looks pretty accurate. The United Globe title looks good, and the blue up here and right about here is accurate. Where I complain about is the color fade from the dark blue to the light blue. This is not the color fade that is on the real aircraft. It is a much more defined color fade, and the light blue up here is much lighter and more noticeable. I think it's about the same shade of blue as the United Globe title here. So the color fade could be done better. Now, something that also doesn't make that much sense is how all of a sudden it goes from fading from this dark blue to just this wall of lighter blue. And the circles here, they use a set of circles to create that color fade. And I honestly think that PandaModel could have done a better job. Is it the worst? No, but it could have been better. Here is the right side of the aircraft. I won't provide too much commentary here because everything I've said about the left side can also be applied to the right side. Overall, we're off to a strong start. There's just those small nitpicks on the vertical stabilizer, and that's really the only gripe I have with the model so far. Moving up to the wings. The wings on this model are quite good. There's lots of detail on them. First, I'll talk about the control surfaces, that being the molded detail. The control surfaces are all clearly defined and the shapes seem to be pretty accurate, so solid job there. You guys can see the shapes of the control surfaces are nicely done. The leading edge slats also look really good, so control surface detail is definitely not lacking. Painted detail, there's only 2 colors on the wing, which is accurate as it should be, and that looks pretty good. The silver paint on the leading edge of the wing looks really nice. And here's the underside, by the way. The underside doesn't have any printed detail, but make no mistake, it is definitely not lacking in detail either. So the wings are pretty solid so far. Printed detail is where my complaining comes in, because on my piece here you can see that some of the printed detail kind of got messed up on the left wing. And the printed detail, I should just say, just printed markings, it's just 2 lines, really nothing too extensive, which in PandaModel's defense, it really doesn't need to be that extensive because that's how the 767-400 is. But here on the right side, it looks pretty good. So the issue that I just pointed out is a quality control issue rather than an inconsistency or an issue with every single model. Now we're back at the rear of the aircraft. Here we can see the horizontal stabilizers. These are also very nicely detailed and their shape looks pretty good. There's painted, printed, and molded detail on this, also all of which looks really nice. So no complaints on the horizontal stabilizers. APU looks pretty good as well. It's just painted a dark metallic silver that looks nice. And the line back here where it joins the halves of the fuselages, it's not imbalanced or anything. It's not misaligned. So very solid back here as well. Now down here, there's not that much to see. There's just the APU access doors, and even that looks really good as well. Well, actually here, I do see that the wing seam with the horizontal stabilizers, there's a very small gap here. Well, actually a decently sized gap. Small nitpick, but nothing major at all. I'm going to do my best to hold the model steady here, but there's something about the paint application here, or rather the layering of the paints, that I would like to point out that applies to the whole model. Very small imperfection, but something that I would like to point out regardless. So here you can see that there is a distinct layering of the gray paints here on the underbelly. Some of this gray paint is slightly different in color than the rest of the underbelly, so that's one thing. And another thing is that here, this little white thing right here, some of the blue from the stripe pokes out from under it. Very hard to notice, but things that you should be aware of. Moving on to the engines. The engines on this model are very nicely done. Here you can see the engines are mounted straight and correctly. That looks really good. Overall, the detail on the engines is quite extensive. And if my camera, there we go. All right, so there you can see the details on the right engine are very nice. And I really don't have any complaints about the engines. Now, one of my favorite parts personally about the model is the fan details. Look at that. The detail is very extensive, especially considering this is a 1:400 scale die-cast airliner. This engine detail beats any of the competition that this model has. So this is by far the most extensive 1:400 scale Boeing 767 engine detail that I've seen so far. Moving on to aerial details, this model features antennas and sat domes. The antennae on this model are quite nice. They're small, as they should be, and there's really nothing I have to complain about them. This one here is at the front end of the aircraft at the top, as you can see. It looks pretty good. No complaints. Okay, it might be loose, actually. Alright, sorry about that. So the antenna is not loose. It is fit on there quite nicely. Now let's move towards the rear of the aircraft. Here we have a sat dome and another antenna, and the sat dome is actually really nice. It's fit to the aircraft quite smoothly, and I think it is dead center on the fuselage. Yes, it looks like it's dead center, and there's very little gap between the sat dome and the fuselage. So overall, very solid job. And back there, that one antenna, it is off a little bit to the side, but it is firmly attached, so I won't hold that against Panda too much. Overall, decent job on the aerial details at the top here. At the bottom of the aircraft, we have this one singular antenna towards the rear. It looks fine. I do see what appears to be some hair on it, which, that's disgusting, but I can get rid of it right away. But overall, down here, it looks good as well. So here is the bottom of the aircraft, and down here you can see a bit more of what I was referring to with the gray layering of the paint here on the underbelly. You can see that there's a little stripe of gray that is slightly different from the gray on the rest of the underbelly. Now, this is a common phenomenon on most 1:400 scale and even some 1:200 scale die-cast airliners, so I won't complain about it. It's just something that I want to point out. Now, right from here, we'll move on to the landing gear. The landing gear on this model are very nice, and actually the landing gear on this model are better than the models from other manufacturers, and the reason for that is because PandaModel is one of the only manufacturers, if not the only manufacturer, that gets the 767-400 landing gear correctly made. What I mean by that is that the Boeing 767-400, or I'm not sure if it's just exclusively the 400ER variant, either way, it has different landing gear covers, or just not entirely different, but a different landing gear assembly than the Boeing 767-300 or 200. And PandaModel accounts for this difference on the mold, so that is a detail that I definitely respect. Now, with regards to the landing gear itself in the model, it's nicely detailed. The wheels do roll, and they're made out of rubber. And yeah, this is the main gear I've been showing you this whole time. And the nose gear definitely does not falter either. Take a look at that. It's very nicely detailed, and you can even see the ETOPS text on the nose gear door. So very nicely done on the printed detail there. Now, that little flake right there, that is going to be a subject of discussion in just a moment. So here's a view of the front of the aircraft, and I'm just going to interrupt right now. If you can hear my dog barking right now, I'm sorry about that. But anyway, here's the view at the front of the aircraft. The wing flex looks pretty good, seems to be accurate. It is slightly bent up, which is correct. Engine clearance looks good, gear balance looks good, cockpit window printing might be slightly slanted. There's my dog, sorry. Either it's the cockpit window printing or it's the vertical stabilizer. One of the two is slightly slanted, but not by much. So that's the end of my review. Now, before I give you my personal opinion and recommendation, that little flake that we found on the nose gear doors earlier, I wanted to discuss that because when I first opened this model, it was of course covered in the oily finish that most die-cast airline models are covered in when they're fresh out of the box. I'm not sure why that is the case, but I'm pretty sure that has to do with preservation and whatnot. But in addition to this little oily substance, the model was covered in strands of strands of string, dust particles, little flakes of, I'm not even sure what that was. It was covered in that, and it was pretty difficult to clean because this model, make no mistake, it is decently sized, but some of these details are really small and probably pretty fragile, so I wanted to handle the model very carefully in the cleaning process. And even then, I didn't get everything, as you can see, so PandaModel could definitely use a thing or two about cleanliness with regards to assembling and packaging the models. The model itself wasn't affected by this, but it's just annoying as a customer to have to deal with cleaning that. But it's not, in the end, it's not an issue with the model itself. Now, with regards to my personal opinion, this model is really nice. It has its imperfections like all model airplanes do, but it's very nice. It's very nicely detailed, it's accurate, and in my opinion, it blows the competition out of the water. The current competition this model has is the Gemini Jets mold, and NG model still is pushing out theirs, and right now I haven't seen anything from NG model, so I can't comment on theirs, but it definitely blows the Gemini and JC version out of the water, so therefore I absolutely recommend this model. To my knowledge, this one sold out really fast, so you're lucky if you can find one even on the secondhand market, and if you do find one, I wish you the best of luck with the price because I'd imagine someone's going to sell it for an absurdly high amount. So I do recommend this model, but just best of luck if you do choose to obtain one. Well, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more model airplane content. I've got more on the way, and feel free to check out my channel for zesty, half-made model airplane reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. Happy building, happy collecting. Take care of yourselves. See you next time.